Greetings, dear viewer, and welcome to another episode of News Reboot. Today is like a few following Monday news reboots, a recorded episode because we are on a summer vacation with Betty. Stefan will be here watching at the house. Uh, Please, if you haven't done so already, leave a like, subscribe, and tickle the notification bell, and check all of the links in the description box below. And a huge thank you to my patron Flems. I would like to remind you of the existence of my Patreon page, which is patreon.com/ Heidi's Corner, and there will be a link up there and in the description box below. There is tiers starting from €3 a month, uh, which is the Unicorn crew, and this goes up to €30 a month for Bertil's people. Huge thank you to Flems, who is my patron. Uh, patron has Patreon page of mine has existed for 10 months or so at this point, and Flems has been my patron from almost the very beginning. So big shout out to Flems. As the title of tonight's video indicates, the actual beef or tofu or whatever for vegetarians, it is the sex ed and LGBTQ plus inclusive health, sexual healthcare, health education, which for the amount, the quality and quantity of the sex ed and reproductive health, it varies quite a lot from country to country and as well as within those countries. And the more religious the country and the region are, um, the poorer the quality and the less there is. For example, here in Finland, it's quite good and scientifically accurate, medically accurate with it as part of the national curriculum. But for example, in the Bible Belt in the U.S. and some other places, um, it's abstinence only and just don't do it. Abstinence only is the only uh, option for these poor people. Uh, and unfortunately, in the US, it's a thing that dads drag their young daughters into these love wait until marriage proms, etc., or they're directly just through their own church, where the girls are then made to sign or write a written pledge to stay a virgin until marriage. True love, wait and shit. Uh, Sex is made to be something bad, dirty, sinful, just the basic straight thing. Penis penis in penis vaginal intercourse is made to be something very very dirty and sinful, which it is not, as long as it's consensual. This leaves many youngsters and teenagers and young adults uninformed about basic human anatomy, healthy relationship skills, and safer practices. Remember what I've been telling or saying about the high teen pregnancy and insanely high teen abortion rates? Yes, I hope so. those go hand in hand with states and regions where the only available sex ed is abstinence only and don't. This would be the case, for example, in the southern and other Bible Belt states in the US. So I found an interesting article which sparked my interest in actually making this video. So let's have a look at the article, which is a good one at that, and I found it quite easily online, actually by accident when I was researching for another video. So here we see that this is from AmericanProgress.org, an article which I will link in the description box down below. According to a national survey, this would have been in the US, a US national survey saying that only 4% of the LGBT youth in middle and high school reported to having any sort of positive discussion of LGBT people or issues of their health in their classes. And a female senior in high school wrote, because, and I quote, because my school's health program ignores gay students. I had been pretty clueless about safe sex. I had to find information on my own on the internet because non-straight students are ignored. Too many schools fail in trying to provide for LGBT students with actual proper information, and this is something that I will come over. I'll go over that because that's very, very, very problematic. Okay, some curricula make some explicitly negative statements of queer people and their relationship. One teacher's manuals even stated that, quote unquote, any sexual experimentation, quote unquote, can be confusing to young persons and should be strongly discouraged. Like, excuse me, what in the actual fuck is wrong with the writers of this teacher's manual? Because there's so much wrong with this, and I'm not quite sure where to begin. So wherever as I just said, there was so much wrong with that, and as the article said, wherever it implied that wherever the sex ed is more than just abstinent only or just don't, the material and education presumes the cis hetero norm. Everyone is presumed cisgender straight and want only vaginal intercourse, as in penis inserted into a vagina. This isn't good because queer people or LGBTQ plus people need to stay safe too, don't we? I think we should, and especially young people, because the this kind of lack of sex ed, or even if there is some sex ed, the low quality is very, very worrying and can cause all kinds of nasty things. The lack of material puts us, or the inappropriate material puts us, as we just saw, in a very bad light and prevents us receiving accurate and proper information, because when this stuff doesn't come up in a proper way, when it's not factually correct in school, this girl who was a senior in high school had to go online to look for it. And as we know, the information we find online may or may not be factually correct. And actually, a lot, I will come to that a bit later, because in some states in the US, the law doesn't even mandate the information to be factually correct, which is quite worrying. And this creates an environment of and a sense of exclusion instead of inclusion. You have something important you're not you're and these teenagers are left out of, and they're not equal in comparison with their peers. It's a well established fact that high quality and comprehensive sex ed keeps down the rates of unwanted pregnancies, especially among teens, abortions, terminating unwanted teen pregnancies, promotes safe sex practices, reduces STDs or sexually transmitted diseases or illnesses, like chlamydia, gonorrhea, HIV, etc., and reduces other high risk behavior. As stated previously, the abstinence only has been proven to be very inaccurate and ineffective to provide these results time and time again, and to nobody's surprise, really, because it is the abstinence only policy, and it's an as well established fact that the abstinence only um, policy and the just don't policy only increases unwanted teen pregnancies, uh, increases the abortion rate, which these conservatives are trying to eradicate. So it's quite weird, to be honest. In many countries, like my home country, Finland, the sex ed and reproductive health teaching in general, even also that which is aimed at cis and straight kids, is to some degree mandatory in national education curriculum, starting from, I think, when I was in school, the sex ed started on grade 5, and mind you, kids go to school at the age of 7 in Finland, so that would have been, I think, 12 at the age of 11 and 12. Is the grade 5, you start the year you turn 11 and finish when you turn 12. So that started with age appropriate things, like the girls were, we were told about, this is how, age appropriately, of course, that this is how babies come about. This is how, and the girls were told, unfortunately, separately. The girls were told about periods, because at that point, many girls typically would have already started their periods, because I mean, the average in Finland is 12 or 13, something like that. But as we know, some girls start their period quite a bit earlier. At youngest I've heard of, that I've met in person, started her period at the age of 8. So it varies. So that's why we talk about this stuff quite early on, age appropriately, of course. As stated previously, the Finnish national curriculum requires sex ed be taught in starting from grade 5 and then grade 6, and then when going to the secondary school, or what they call junior high in the US, at starting from grade 7, there is then there's some talk of, reproductive health, like in condoms and how to use, probably how to use it, on a banana, etc. But and it has to be factually correct, and it has to be medically correct information, and medically and scientifically accurate information. However, in the US, only 22 states and District of Columbia or Washington, D.C. are mandated or mandate by law that there is an actual sex ed program in schools. So that would be less, well under half of the states. That's 51 states, I think, and then District of Columbia. And of these 22, only 2 mandate teaching about contraception, and only 7 states in the entirety of the United States require that this information, that the sex ed information is medically correct. So according to my calculations, 44 states in the US do not require the sex ed to be medically accurate. So they can teach any bullshit. The 44 states can then teach whatever bullshit they ever wish. This would then explain many things. Among 18 to 19-year-olds in the same national survey referred to before, 18 to 19-year-old of the all 18 to 19-year-olds who took part in the survey say they know little to nothing of condoms. Yes, you heard that right. 18 of the 18 to 19-year-olds, 42% know nothing, or zero, or next to zero about condoms, and 75% claim no knowledge, little to no knowledge of the contraceptive pill. And I know you're getting what I'm saying about how there's pretty much zero queer sex ed, or quite actually zero sex ed, queer sex ed in the US. But there's little for straight people. How the hell would you expect to have proper sex ed, or for LGBTQ plus people, or at least inclusive sex ed? Gay or bi identifying men who are having sex with men account for 2/3 of all new HIV infections among people ages 13 to 29 in the US. And also they account for 2/3 of all new syphilis cases. And the American CDC, or Center for Disease Control, is reporting that cases may be on the rise. Young women identifying lesbians or bi are more likely to get STDs and get pregnant than straight and questioning counterparts. However, the getting pregnant stuff for lesbians, hey, what the hell? I mean, there are many factors probably in this. They're just trying to conform and try to be in the closet for whatever reason, and force themselves into straight relationships, and could be a number of things. And there's also a big taboo in dating slash intimate relation violence with both male and female partners in general, in the general populace, and even more so, is a huge taboo among the LGBTQ plus people, and that is for a number of reasons. Uh, as I may have already stated, transgender people have a very high prevalence of HIV than prevalence than their cisgender um, counterparts. In particular, transgender women of color are most affected, and also sex workers, of whom many are sex workers. The HIV rates in among trans people, is 4 times the US average. This is just so wrong on so many levels. And also, just for reference, 23% of all HIV diagnoses in the US and 6 dependent areas in 2019 were on heterosexual people, and heterosexual men accounted for 7% of the new diagnoses, and heterosexual women accounted for 16. This may or may not have something to do with women quite often, especially in the lower social classes, and if substance abuse is involved, could have to do with these women being involved in sex work. In the areas lacking the sex ed and the existence of this abstinence only or just don't policy really shows in the rates of HIV infections rates, because in the southern states, it's in some areas it's double than of what the best areas uh, show. Let's have an article. Look at an article from the U.S. government, the HIV.gov, which is the which has the government statistics on HIV. Here we have by region. So in 2019, rates were 15.2 in South, US 9.4 in the Northeast, 9.2 in the West, and 7.2 in the Midwest. So do we see a double the 15.2 in the South, and for example 7.2 in the Midwest? And it's in the South, the HIV rate is catastrophic. It's catastrophic as it is already, but it's double over. It's more than double of the Midwest. Remember what I said about the teen pregnancy rates, teen abortion rates in the South, in the southern states, with the abstinence only and just don't sex ed. Yeah, it's not surprising that we see HIV rates like this. These problems could be, we could start, and the authorities more them could start tackling these issues with relative ease by gathering up, even if they had to copy and paste translate and copy and paste from the appropriate and scientifically accurate sex ed material that is medically accurate and accurate on other appropriate scientific fields. it would be with relative ease, they could make the LGBTQ sex ed available to everyone, every single school in the country. Copy, translate, copy and paste, print, and that's it. Even if the teachers don't want to teach it, they can just give the book or the pilot papers and tell the kids to read it if they are uncomfortable with teaching any of it. Contraception, the use of condoms and scientifically accurate information is one of the most important, or some of the most important things that you can provide to these young people. As of today, in many countries, the curriculum regarding LGBTQ people isn't consistent or even mediocre in quality. The information taught to teens and young adults is often very inaccurate, prejudiced, and stigmatizing, as we have seen so far in this video and some other of my videos. In many countries, as well as in varying degrees in the US states, homosexuality is a crime. Recently, just this summer of 2022, the state of Pennsylvania decriminalized homosexuality. Yeah, you got it right. Homosexuality is still a crime in some parts of the US. But is that surprising? Not really. I don't think so. And in Alabama, the sex educators are mandated by state law to teach that homosexuality is not a lifestyle acceptable in the general public, and that homosexual conduct is a criminal offense under the laws of the state, and that is not the case. That is factually incorrect. This particular law that they are referring to in Alabama, it was invalidated 10 years ago by the US Supreme Court. Sometimes I just think, when I hear about these things like this Alabama thing here, that they lie to kids that it's illegal to be gay in the state of Alabama, and Pennsylvania just this year decriminalizing homosexuality, I think, are you fucking kidding me? What in the actual fuck is wrong with you? We do not live in Victorian era England, and all this abstinence only shit causes a lot more problems than it claims to solve, as discussed earlier. Quite often we run into issues regarding these topics in states where anti-trans and other laws of this nature are in place. These states include, but are in no way limited to, Florida, Ohio, Alabama, Texas, and Oklahoma. Schools in these and many other states are being made unsafe places, unlike the conservatives who like to think it's quite the opposite, that they are making the schools safer by making some people's lives absolutely miserable. The stigma and discrimination lead young LGBTQ plus people into depression, anxiety, loneliness, and at worst, suicidal thoughts. Schools need to be safe in order for all the students to be well and to thrive. One aspect of ensuring the well-being of LGBTQ plus students is to ensure the equal and inclusive sex ed in comparison to their cis and straight peers. That demands a lot from us adults and the educators, and it's something worth fighting for now and in many years to come. I hope you found this video helpful, informative, and watching this video gave you something to think about, and maybe start your own activism. Who knows? And maybe even start your own YouTube channel. Who knows? But there are links in the description box down below. There are playlist links, and links to my Patreon, PayPal, Discord servers, and the playlists. And if you haven't done so already, please leave a like, subscribe, and tickle the notification bell down there somewhere. And I will see you next week.
Help! Let me out! Out! I want out! Now!